Everyone. We'll get started in just a sec here. If this is your first webinar, welcome. We're trying something new out with the music. Hopefully everyone can hear it. But yeah, feel free to introduce yourself and let us know where you're watching from. I think we have a wide variety of people tuning in today. We have a really fun topic that I'm excited to present. Give it just another minute. Yeah, a bit of logistics as I see some comments coming in as well. This session is going to be recorded. We also have all of our previous webinars up on our YouTube and also our events page. So if you go to gitbook.com/events, you can find all of our previous webinars, and we'll post this one on there as well. I also have my teammate Sarah in the chat. I think she'll say hi in just a sec, but she is here to help me answer any questions. We will leave some time at the end as well to go through any questions that come up on this webinar, but yeah, feel free to shoot them in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it as we're going through some of these different topics. And if not, Sarah can get to it. Otherwise, I'll try to get to it at the end as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Turn the music off. I saw it's a little distracting. So yeah, welcome everyone. Like I said, welcome to the GitBook webinar. We're gonna dive into working with Claude in GitBook. This is kind of, I'm gonna be using Claude in this webinar, but a lot of the stuff that we're going to be covering is applicable to lots of AI agents and AI tools. So hopefully this is going to be very useful for you in the way that you're working with GitBook outside of the GitBook UI. This is a highly, highly requested webinar, so I'm really excited to dive in. And as I was kind of saying before, there's bound to be questions. Feel free to shoot them in the chat. My teammate Sarah is going to do our best to answer them on the spot. If not, we'll leave some time at the end, and hopefully I can go ahead and answer everything that comes up. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you haven't seen a webinar from us before, my name's Addison. I normally do our webinars, and I also work on our developer relations team. And I'm super excited to talk about this topic to show you how not only you can extend the way that you're using GitBook, but also give you a little bit of insight into how I work with GitBook as well, even on our own docs, on some demo sites, and just in general. So let's talk about the agenda, what we're going to cover. One of the big parts that we'll talk about in this entire webinar is something called skills. I'm going to dive into this and show you and give you some good examples of what they are, but we'll give some context on what skills are. Then we'll talk about using GitBook's skill. And this is going to give you all the tools and all the context in order to work on your own doc sites from an AI agent or with an AI agent, whether that's using tools like Claude Code, Codex, or even IDEs like Cursor. We're also going to talk about building your own skill. Obviously, everyone in here is working on their own documentation, and you might be working on a product that a skill might also be useful for. So I'll show you how you can also use GitBook to host your own skill and how to surface it in your documentation. So kind of going back and showing you what I'm doing for our own GitBook skill and how you can implement that for your own doc sites. Talk a little bit about how this relates to what we are working on next and some of the improvements to this whole webinar, but also just the GitBook platform in general. And then, like I said, we will dive into a bit of a Q&A at the end. I've seen some questions on here. I think if you didn't hear it, we do record these as well. So these are all going to be up on our YouTube and our events page afterwards. So if you have to drop off or you are missing part of it, you can always rewatch the recorded version of this afterwards. But let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit more about what skills are. So in a nutshell, a skill file is a markdown file, or basically just some instructions that AI agents like Cursor, Claude Code, IDEs can use to understand how you work with specific tools and APIs. Because by default, AI is really good at understanding instructions, but it doesn't have the context on knowing what you need to do if you're working in a documentation site or any other product. So as I mentioned, they work with tons of different AI tools, and we'll get into this and show you how we're using it ourselves. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the structure of a skill file. So a skill file at its root is essentially just a markdown file. There are some specifications that were released by Anthropic that kind of define what a skill file should contain, how to organize them, and some required pieces of data that all AI agents will use in order to use a skill. And I'll show you this as well. But I want to also talk about finding skills and how you can discover your own skills outside of GitBooks, or again, if you want to build your own and surface it and give it to other people as well. So a lot of products have them. As I mentioned, it's essentially just a markdown file or a collection of markdown files that describe how you want an agent to work with your product. But there's a lot of different popular repositories and different sites out there that let you discover new skills for many of the tools you might also already be using. So I've listed a few of these here as well. Feel free to check some of these out if you want to explore some of the skills after this session and see if any of those might be helpful for you. But installing skills after you find a skill that you want to use is pretty easy. At its core, as I mentioned, it's just a markdown file that you can include inside of a repo or give to an agent. But you can also use different tools like skills.sh to help install and scaffold skills for a project, a repository, and I'm also going to demo this. In the webinar today as well. So how skills are essentially used by AI agents, it's kind of loaded up into 3 stages. So when an AI agent starts up, it will basically load all of the skills that it has access to. Some of the required things that a skill needs to have is a name and a description. The name is essentially the name of the skill that you want to use, and description is the context on how it should be used. So if it comes up in a chat with AI, it kind of knows when it should use that tool. Or if you ask it to, you can say, hey, use the GitBook skill, and it will know that it needs to use this set of instructions and files. And then when the activation skill, kind of already mentioned that, when the task matches the skill's description, it will read the full set of SKILL.md instructions into context, and it will be able to use that specific context for the task that it's trying to complete, which is step number 3. It follows the instructions and optionally looks inside of different references and kind of scaffolds more instructions and context as needed. So how we're going to structure this and how I'm going to explain this is, again, starting with working with GitBook's own skill, and then later we'll get into how you can create your own skill and use it in your own documentation site. But if you're working with an AI agent outside of GitBook, you do need to be using something called Git Sync. And Git Sync allows you to essentially sync your GitBook site with a GitHub or GitLab repository. But because we'll be working in code and like the markdown inside of our Git repository, that way we're able to work with any AI agent, whether that's Claude Code or tools like Cursor, to work with our own AI agents on the markdown directly. Then when we go ahead and we're done with it, we can push it up to Git, to GitLab or GitHub, and then that will sync into GitBook. So it's essentially abstracting the work that we want to do into our IDE or to, again, a coding agent. I do want to mention as well, if you have never used Git Sync or you don't normally work inside of a code editor and you haven't set this stuff up before, we also do have something called GitBook Agent, which we've kind of talked about and shown inside of our previous webinars, which is essentially another AI agent that you can use directly from the GitBook editor. So if you're more comfortable working in the GitBook UI, you already have access to an AI agent directly inside of the product. You can open up the agent inside of a change request and pretty much ask it to do most of the things that we're going to demo. But we are going to dive into this because a lot of people have different workflows and they have different tools that they want to use. And we're all about making it more extensible for you in the way that you want to use GitBook. So after we have Git Sync set up, we'll show you how to install the GitBook skill, and then we'll go ahead and start working. So pretty straightforward and pretty easy to get started. So again, a little bit about why we have a skill and why skills exist in the first place. And I'm going to talk about this from the lens of GitBook. So again, agents like Claude, they don't have the full picture as you might as a human when you're working on markdown files or your GitBook site. Like when you want to use a special block like expandables, how to structure your repo across different sections or variants, and how to customize your site to match like a certain brand. Like an AI agent out of the box won't really know how to use these certain things, but when it has the context provided from a skill that we've provided at GitBook, it then has all the access in order to complete the things that it needs to do. So yeah, this GitBook skill allows the agent to get the full picture to start working. So now that we understand a little bit more about what skills are, let's take a look at some more practical example. So let me rearrange this a little bit as well so we can kind of see this better. Let me know if this is too small as well, and I can definitely make this bigger. Something that I want to mention as we get started with this too, again, skills is something that was created by Anthropic, and it's standardized by Anthropic as well, and they have documentation on this. So as you start to write your own skill files, you can take a look at their docs on how to structure it. This has a lot of good information on, again, the structure of how a skill should look, how to access it, what you should put in there, what you should put in the front matter. So make sure you take a look at this. I'm also going to share all the links at the end of the session as well, so you can have a look at these afterwards. Also, a bit of like stage setting for this as well. I'm going to be using the Syncly documentation. If you haven't seen these docs before, this is the demo content that I use for webinars. So we're continuously building on top of this every single webinar. You might recognize a lot of this stuff from the last webinar. So all of the stuff that we're going to do is going to get pushed to GitHub, and it's going to end up inside of here, which will then be published in the end. And as a little bit of setup as well, what I want to just kind of highlight and show is I already have this synced to GitHub. So I'm saving a little bit of time because some of this is just configuration and we have a lot of videos on setting this up. But I've already essentially synced this up to GitHub. So I have all of the markdown and the repo here. This is also public on my GitHub if you want to explore how any of this stuff is set up. And I also, of course, have that set up in my IDE over here so we can start working. So now that we have basically our GitBook site and we have it synced with GitHub, we want to install the GitBook skills so we can start working on our docs. Again, we're not going to be working inside of the editor, but we're going to be working with an AI agent. So a great way to install different skills, this is something that I mentioned before, is with a tool called skills.sh. So you can use this to install different skills. And again, you can explore different skills inside of here. And this will scaffold the required skills that you are going to need from any project inside of a repo that you're using. But as I mentioned, if you don't want to use a tool like NPX, it is just markdown at the end of the day, and you can always copy and paste and download and install skills by including it inside of your repo. We also do have all of this documented as well, and I'll be following a lot of this inside of this webinar. And essentially, this will describe how you can use our own GitBook skill. So again, we do have it listed as just a file. You can download this. You can include it inside of your repo. I'm going to show you a different way in this webinar, but it also gives a little bit of information about what it contains, how you can use it locally via URL, etc. And I also want to show that you can see what it looks like if you take a look at skill.md as such. Again, this is just the skill file. And again, this is just a markdown file, and it tells you what's inside of here, how to use GitBook. It tells it how to use the structure of different things, different front matter for different pages. And this is something that's available to you right now. So you can go ahead and install the skill and start working in GitBook. We also have it on our GitHub for the public docs, which is just a mirror of our documentation site as well. And we're going to be installing it from this repo from here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's install this into our project. So I'm just going to open up a terminal here. And I'm going to run a simple command that's going to add this skill. Let me make this a bit bigger. So it's going to ask what I want to use it with. I'm going to use Claude Code for this. Again, there's tons of different AI agents you can use. And I'm just going to install it inside of this project. And let's just install it. And it's pretty simple. So all I did was add this agents folder and also a skills.lock file as well to kind of reference which skills we're using. And if you take a look at the skill that we're using, again, it's essentially just the markdown. So we have a skill called GitBook. We take a look at the top. It has a name. It has a description on when to use it as well. And it has a big reference on when to use this, all of this stuff. What I also want to mention is this particular skill that we're working on and using has a ton of different references, too many to fit inside of basically just the top level skill. We have to remember when we're working with AI agents, you are feeding it bits of context, which are parsed in the form of tokens. And many times you only have a finite number of tokens to use within a session. So we don't want to bloat the context window with sending it a bunch of everything all the time. We basically only want to send it the type of context that we're using at any given time. So what this main top level skill does is it essentially gives it all the necessary things to get started and understand how to work with GitBook. And then it splits down a lot of the other things into when to use these other files, such as like understanding the block ecosystem, understanding configuration files, understanding site structure design, and also even like an example site that you can optionally use if you want to work inside of like against a demo site, essentially. So I'm not going to read through all this. Again, all this is on our GitHub. You can read this and already start using it. But now that we have a skill installed for GitBook, we're going to start working on our docs site. And this is, I think, the more exciting part. So I'm going to be using I'm going to be working basically just with Claude inside of this. So let me navigate to the folder that I'm working in. And let me go ahead and open a new Claude session here. Again, if you're not using Claude, this stuff works with a lot of different AI agents. Maybe share which AI agent you're using in the chat. I think that could be interesting to understand. But we're going to take a look at this from kind of 3 different use cases. Again, we have this doc site already kind of set up, but maybe we want to do some things to it. Maybe we want to create a new variant, which is one thing we'll take a look at. We'll take a look at writing more content as well. And then we'll also take a look at restructuring data in the form of like different sections. And then again, at the end, we'll take a look at building your own skill file. What did I want to say as well? So yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get started, and let's take a look at adding a new site variant. So let me start to describe what I want to do. I'm also just going to say it can be a direct copy of current content. Just name it v2 for now, because I don't want to have it rewrite a bunch of content and use a lot of tokens to rewrite something just yet. It's asking, as you see, if it wants to use the skill GitBook. I've been explicit about saying this, use the GitBook skill, but you can also, if you don't say just use the GitBook skill, it can also use its own context to kind of form this as well. Oh, sorry. I am just checking this now. Major apologies, everyone. Let me fix this. Let me see if this is better. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, that was my bad. Let's see, what did we miss? So I think the main thing was that we installed, so I think you could all see the browser window before. So the main thing that we did at first was essentially install the agents. We used a skill, or excuse me, a command in order to do that. So again, all of those were on the browser window, but I added the skill directly from our repo inside of here. This added it into the IDE window that you can see here. And then what I did was switch to a Claude view, and I started it up, and basically asked it to add a new variant for our doc site, using the GitBook skill to create a new variant in the Syncly site that we're using in the main content. And now it's basically using the skill in order to go through all of this. So it's processing right now. So some of this is going to take just a little bit of time, but we'll be watching and going through this together. Let me see if I can make this. Let's try to just make this big. Wow, there's so many tech hiccups today. Sorry, everyone. I just want to do. Yeah, sorry about this, everyone. I think I might need to keep the this screen on in order to have the audio going, but hopefully this is big enough. I'll keep it. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. If this is too small, yeah, please let me know. So as I was saying, essentially what this does is it was taking a look at the skill. It was then taking a look at my current Syncly doc site. And you can see here it says, now I understand how variants work inside of GitBook, how to use them. But what this skill also allows you to do is work directly with the GitBook API in order to do a lot of different things on your behalf as well. So it will allow you to do things like create sections or create variants, customize your site, a ton of different things that aren't directly available to edit, like from the just the markdown files. And what we're able to do is provide your a GitBook access token that you can get from your site and user settings. And from there, you're able to give it to the agent so it can go ahead and use this. So I have one just inside of 1Password that I'm going to use for this. And I have it here. It's just going to ask me to authorize so it can use the token. And again, what we're doing in this step right now is creating a new variant for our already existing site. So as that runs in the background, we can again explore what we currently have. We have our doc site right here. We have the GitBook site right here. Let me make this a bit bigger. And we have this already live inside of here. So essentially what it should be able to do is do what I asked it to, which was create a new variant and set everything up with a new variant dropdown. Might take just a little bit. So as it's running, let's keep exploring. As I mentioned, if you want to learn how to use this skill yourself, we have all of this on our own docs. You can head to the creating content section. We have a using skill.md file, and you can, again, kind of follow along with all of the steps that I'm using here. I hope this doesn't take too long. It didn't take too long last time, so. Okay, well, it looks like that integration with 1Password wasn't working. One sec here. I'm gonna just give it my personal access token so we can get past that. Sorry about that. Just stop sharing my screen for a sec so I can get this. And one sec here. Okay. I just want to change one thing. Okay, let's hope that this works. So essentially what I did was give it my my access token inside of here, which is something I wouldn't recommend doing, and using an integration like 1Password, which wasn't working for this demo. I'll also delete this personal access token in just a sec. But essentially what it did was use the API to get an understanding of my my doc site. And I'll have to remove that from the recording, but that's okay. Essentially what it does is it has a big picture of my docs organization right now. So it has an understanding of the different spaces that are in here. It has access and understanding of the different sites that I have in here. And it understands that it needs to create a new space called the Syncly docs and add it to the documentation section. So let's have it go ahead. Well, it's not doing a great job, but it's okay. I'm using a demo site anyway, so. And it looks like the variant is now live as well. So let's take a look. It gives us the app link. It's under a path in the v2 inside of here. It asked me to sync it to a new one. And it should show up. So let's take a look and see what it did. Okay, so it created this v2 version for me. It isn't able to. Oh, it is able to create the version here. What it's asking me to do is essentially set up Git Sync, which basically allows, which isn't something that's possible with the GitBook API right now. So that basically will have a reference to that afterwards. But if we take a look at the documentation and the structure, this is already live. So let's take a look. And it does have that. It does have the new version and variant here. I think this is just a little bit incorrect right now because we had the language variants set up before, and it's not set up right now just to handle the translations and also the version 2. But at least we were able to basically use Claude to have it set up and scaffold our site, which was pretty much the first thing that we wanted to essentially do. But there's a lot more that we can do with this. So let's kind of ask it to do a little bit more. For now, let's, one sec. Move the variant and let's add some new content to the main docs. I want to add a new group called guides. Create 2 short mock guides for using Syncly. So let's ask it to do this. And in the meantime, we'll just allow it to make edits inside of this. Again, this is all demo stuff, so no worries. And I'm just letting it basically push to Git as well on my behalf. So it should start showing up inside of here. Oop, after this one. And this one, again, is quite quick and quite easy. This is a pretty simple way to add basically content with Claude and also with Git Sync, so you can add content directly to a repo. Again, with this kind of setup, this might be useful for you in our own team and how we're currently working. I might actually just use GitBook Agent in order to do something like this. I might just hop inside of here. I would probably start a new change request with the GitBook Agent and probably just ask it to do the same thing. And the good thing about GitBook Agent is it already has all of the context inside of here. But again, if you're working outside and want a little bit more control over it, you can definitely do it this way. But taking a look, we now have 2 different guides here. Again, these are just like mock guides for now. But the next thing that I kind of want to show is, again, how it can work with sections as well. So what I'm going to ask it to do next is move these guides that we have into a new section on our site. So just to show you again what's currently live. So this is our site now. It might take a second for the guides to show up, but essentially they'll show up inside of here. But we're going to add it inside of a new section here. Let's see. Just give it this instructions for now. Again, what it does at the beginning here when it's using any skills, any AI agent, is it's trying to pull in all the context that's needed. So it's going through the skill right now and having a look and seeing what it needs. This actually gives us a pretty clear understanding about what it's going to do. In the repo itself, so in the markdown, it's going to create a new guide space with its own summary and README. It's going to move the guides that we currently have into the guide space. It will remove the guides group from the main docs. So again, remove it from the table of content. And then using the API, it's going to create a new space called guides, create a new section called guides that's linked to the space. And then we basically, again, we'll just need to set up Git Sync for that step, as this is something that's not in the API just yet, but that's something that we can show you in a bit. So let's go ahead and proceed. So while that runs, let's take a look and see. I think we have. So I'm just letting it basically create these different guides and stuff for me right now. You can already see that it has a new guides space here. We're about to see as well inside of here, we now have the guide space. So really all we need to do is now set up Git Sync on this. We're doing this with Syncly. This is under my account. And we'll just do the main branch. And it is under a monorepo called guide space. And we want to sync the content from GitHub because again, it just moved all of that content in the right structure for GitBook inside of there. It's a small space, so it should be pretty quick. Cool. Now this is all synced up, and it should also be live on the site, which might have to just wait a sec. Cool. And now we have the new guide section right here. That's going to be pulling from this content inside as well. And again, because this is all synced with GitHub now, we can go ahead and basically just ask it to continue editing these different things, and it will go ahead and do it. So one sec here. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at now how we can create kind of your own skill and the structure for this. So going back, let's go ahead and take a look at our own doc site here. So if you're working inside of your, if you're working on your own docs inside of GitBook and you want to basically host your own skill on your own site, again, showing you what that looks like on ours. It's pretty simple. All you really need to do is start by creating a skill file for your product. I would also probably recommend taking a look at the documentation provided by Anthropic on how to structure your skill. Even work with a AI agent to form your skill, how it should work, how it should interact with AI agents. But at the end, you should have a markdown file. And what all you need to do with this is essentially host it inside of either the repo or inside of GitBook. So in GitBook, it's pretty easy because you're able to essentially hide pages, and you can start to use that as a good reference for your docs. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at what this would look like if we went ahead and created our own. So what I'm going to do is actually create a new page. And I'm just going to use the UI for this for now. And we'll just call this skill. We'll also go ahead and hide this right away because we don't want this hidden. And I'm just going to merge this. So this is kind of just like a temporary placeholder file for our skill that we're going to end up using. And we'll wait for this to sync with GitBook. And it looks like it added this. And taking a look back at the, oops, one sec here. Wrong screen. And taking a look back at the agent skills, all we basically need in order to create a skill is a name and a description. So all we need to do is make sure that that is inside of our file here as well. So just taking a look at what it looks like in the code right now. Again, this is the markdown for the page that we just created. We really just need to add a name, which is how it's going to be referenced to use this. So if we were creating one for this, I could go ahead and call this just something like this, simply. I could also restructure this as well. Let me just commit this. But the good part about this right now is it's already directly usable in the way that you will need it, because this is now accessible on our site under skill.md. Oh, one sec. I think it should be this one. Maybe it hasn't synced yet either. Let me take a look. I don't think this might have synced just yet, but essentially what you'll end up with is, yeah, just the direct markdown for the skill that you were writing with, and then you can basically reference it directly as I've shown. So this is hopefully just a little bit of information on how you can use skills, create your own skill, and also use the GitBook skill to work on doc sites. I want to leave a little bit of time at the end here so we can get to some questions. But yeah, we are also working on a bunch of different things that are going to make this a little bit easier. One of the main things that I want to point out as well is the fact that obviously part of this was a little bit of manual edits with the Git Sync. We had to basically set up Git Sync still, and we are working on a lot of improvements on this front as well to also allow you to set up Git Sync programmatically so you can continue to work with tools like Claude Code and kind of manage the whole site without having to do a lot of work within the UI. But let's take a look and see what we can answer. So if there's any questions that come up, feel free to hop in and we'll go ahead and get to them. Okay, so there's a question from Tom on using the API over pushing to GitHub. So there are kind of pros and cons for each one. Or let's say there's different use cases for each one. So if you're using the GitBook skill and want to start working programmatically with GitBook and GitHub, you would probably use Git Sync if you're working directly on the content. So if you're going to be adding content directly to the site, if you're going to be moving pages around, if you're going to build a structure, adding things like redirects. But if you are using, but you would probably want to use the API if you want to do things to your site specifically, such as things like customization, adding variants, adding sections, things like that. Another question about variants in the API. So actually, if you want to create a variant, you kind of need a mix of both. You'll need the API to create the variant in your site, but you will also need then the markdown to be formed. So you would use the writing aspect of it to essentially write the markdown into the product. So you'd use a mix of the Git Sync and also the API. Richard's asking if they need to be placed in a specific directory. This is a good, it's a good question. So not necessarily if you need them to be just accessible via a link, or if you want to download it, it can kind of live wherever, but they do need to live in a certain directory if you are using them as well. So for instance, this is the agent skills docs. And here's a little bit about like how it uses it. And this is again what it does when we did the step earlier, when we did npx skills install the Gitbook one. Yes, another great question from Maria. If you have a Gitbook stock site but don't have a GitHub repo for it, would you recommend just using the Gitbook agent itself? Yes, absolutely. If you don't have a GitHub repo and you don't want to necessarily go through some of the work of getting one set up, I would definitely go ahead and just create your changes with the Gitbook agent directly in the UI. I think it's a little bit faster as well. So if you are working, let's say, inside of a change request, you can actually just ask it to do, again, many of the things that we just demoed on the webinar today. Let's see. If there's multiple spaces in a repo, skill can be applied to all spaces. Do we need to keep it in each space? I have multiple spaces in a single repo. Skills can be applied to the whole space. You need to keep it. So you can really create as many different skills as you want in a single repo. So yeah, I guess you can have as many different skills as you want in a single repo, and you can also install as many skills as you want inside of a repo as well. Is there a way to feed custom skill.md to native GitBook agent? So right now, there isn't, but we are investigating and looking into basically customizing the agent a little bit better. So if there's definitely things that you are interested in using, or specific use cases that you have that maybe don't fit into working with like Claude or an AI agent outside of the GitBook agent that you'd like to see natively, definitely let us know. Yes, we will be sharing all of this as well. And we will be recording this. Maybe a stupid question, but why do I want different personal skills for using GitBook and not the one you provide? So that's kind of a good question, and the difference of them. If you are working with GitBook and you're working in GitHub, you should use the GitBook skill. So the one that we provide. Again, you can find that. You can find more information on that in our own docs, just called AI Coding Assistance and SKILL.md. So if you're using GitBook and GitHub, use ours and go ahead and follow this guide on creating your own. But on the other hand, why you would want to create your own is, again, if you're working on documentation for your own product and you want to host your own skill file for your own users, then you would go that second half of this webinar, where we basically created our own skill file and hosted it. So yeah, to answer your question, you would probably just want to use this one for the purposes of working in GitBook. Okay, well, I think that almost does it. We are also very active in our community online as well, in our own GitHub. So if you go to GitBook's GitHub and you go to our discussions, feel free to follow up with any questions or any thoughts or feature requests there. We'll make sure that we can get back to you and reply to you. We also, like I said, are recording the stream. We'll put this online very shortly. And major apologies for the technical difficulties throughout this. There was a few hiccups along the way, but we did make it. So happy that we were able to kind of show everything inside of here. Yeah, so again, if there's any more questions, feel free to follow up with us in GitHub. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one, which should be very soon.